Look at your college diploma on the wall. Or think about your current job title on LinkedIn.
Yeah, or maybe you have an industry award sitting on your desk.
Right. Think about the years of stress, the sleepless nights, maybe the crushing student debt it took to get those
Oh,
things.
absolutely. It's a massive investment.
But what if none of those were actual achievements? Like, what if they were just tracking devices?
And incredibly effective ones at that. Because, I mean, the genius of the system isn't just that it installs these tracking
Oh,
devices.
yeah.
It's that it conditions you to base your entire self-worth on collecting them.
Which brings us to today's deep dive. We are digging into a new book that forces us to look in a very uncomfortable mirror.
Quite literally. It's called The Mirror, Identity, Power, and the Automation Age by Joseph Sack.
And our mission today is to unpack a really controversial, heavy premise from this book.
Definitely heavy.
Right. It's the idea that much of our modern identity is actually an illusion, one that was built by a system designed to extract value from us.
We're going to look at how industrialization laid the groundwork for this, how the arts industry completely perfected this psychological heist.
Yeah, and why the sudden explosion of AI is acting as that mirror, exposing that our massive collective fear of automation.
Might not really be a fear of losing our humanity.
Exactly. But rather just the fear of losing a manufactured status.
So, to understand why AI is triggering such a huge existential crisis today, Stack argues we first have to rewind.
Like way back.
Right. Way back. We have to look at how we were installed with our current identities in the first place, long before algorithms even existed.
Before the internet, before all of it.
Exactly. We have to go back to what he calls the pre-industrial cottage economy.
Which was just a fundamentally different way of existing in the world. I mean, in the cottage economy, people made things, they grew things, they fixed things.
Right. And the defining feature of that era wasn't that it was some utopia. I mean, life was often brutal and short.
Yeah, no indoor plumbing, things like that.
Exactly. But the crucial part is that the worker owned the full value of what they produced.
Like if you spent 3 days making a chair, that chair was yours to trade or sell. There was no intermediary stepping in to take, 70% of the value.
But then comes industrialization. And the story we're traditionally taught is that the Industrial Revolution was this triumph of human progress.
Right. Machines made things more efficient. Society got richer. Everyone wins.
Right. But Sag frames it completely differently.
Mm-hmm.
He argues industrialization wasn't just about efficiency. It was a massive, coordinated power grab.
So the core innovation wasn't the steam engine.
No, not at all. The real innovation was the centralization of labor. The realization that if you pull independent workers out of their cottages
and put them under one roof on one schedule,
you can harvest the gap between the value of what they produce and the tiny wage you pay them.
Okay, so basically, taking someone who used to build a whole shoe from scratch in their own shop and putting them on an assembly line where they only punch the holes for the laces.
For 14 hours a day. Precisely. You take away the worker's ownership of the final product, and you take away their autonomy.
But here's the problem for the factory owners, right? Human beings are fiercely independent by nature.
Exactly. You can't just force an entire population into a soul-crushing assembly line without massive rebellion.
So what do?
You need unconscious surrender. You need compliance.
Okay, hold on. I want to push back on this a bit. On behalf of anyone listening who thinks this sounds a bit like a conspiracy theory,
Sorry.
people didn't just blindly walk into factories because they were hypnotized. I mean, they needed to feed their families. It was economic necessity, wasn't it?
Well, it was economic necessity initially, yes. But to sustain that system across generations, you can't rely purely on desperation.
Right. People eventually push back.
Exactly. So you have to change the psychology of the population. You have to make them actually want to participate in the hierarchy.
And how do you do that?
Sachs argues you start when they're young. You build an institution that mirrors the factory floor. You give them modern schooling.
And this is where the book makes a really sharp, almost abrasive distinction. It states that education liberates, but school conditions.
Right.
But wait, I mean, we send our kids to school to learn math, to learn history, to become well-rounded citizens. Are we really saying all modern schooling is just brainwashing for factory work?
Well, look at the underlying architecture of the traditional school system, not just the curriculum.
Yeah.
What is the environment teaching?
I mean, you sit in rows?
Yeah. You sit in rows. You operate on a strict schedule dictated by bells.
Oh, like a shift bell.
Exactly like a shift bell. And you must ask a central authority figure for permission to speak or even to use the restroom.
Wow, yeah.
The structure itself is the lesson. Education asks you to build internal authority and think critically. Schooling, however, asks you to perform thinking in a way that produces the right answer for an external authority.
Oh, I see where this is going. The grading system.
Exactly. The moment a student is handed a letter grade as a measure of their worth, the installation process begins.
Because a B+ doesn't just mean you grasped 85% of the material.
No, it trains you to measure your self-worth in units of output. Endurance, sitting still, suppressing natural curiosity.
These weren't just classroom rules.
They were the load-bearing walls of a new economy. Suffering and grinding were rebranded as virtues.
So to put this in modern terms, for the listener, that feeling of profound guilt you get when you try to rest on a Sunday afternoon,
Oh, yeah.
or the panic of an empty inbox, you're saying that isn't human nature. It's literally a feature of the manufacturing mold we were poured into.
It is the ghost of the assembly line in your nervous system.
That is so wild.
It is. The system engineered a psychological dependency where we began to fuse our egos with what Sack calls borrowed status.
Borrowed status, because history used to build egos around things like lineage or your role in a local community.
Right, but industrial capitalism built ego around institutions.
The job title.
The job title, the name of the prestigious company you work for, the degree from an elite university.
It was an identity heist. Like, our intrinsic sense of self was quietly taken, repackaged, and sold back to us as a credential.
Yes. And the brilliant part, or the evil part, depending on how you look at it, is that a credential isn't always a guarantee of quality or skill.
Right. It's a toll booth. It guarantees revenue and relevance for the gatekeeper who issues it.
And once you buy into that, you start treating human beings, including yourself, as mere production units.
Like when you walk into a networking event.
Exactly. You walk into a networking event and you don't see people with complex inner lives. You see competitors or stepping stones or assets.
Because our identity became entirely dependent on our rank in that hierarchy.
And we will fiercely defend the hierarchy because dismantling it would mean losing the only self we know.
Okay, if we follow this logic, the most devastating application of this conditioning wasn't on the assembly line or in corporate cubicles.
No, it was.
It was how it weaponized human passion. The book dedicates a massive section to the arts industry, which honestly perfectly sets the stage for the specific panic we're seeing around AI today.
The extraction model hitting the arts is profound because historically art was the ultimate anti-commodity.
Right, it was a communal, free act.
Stories told around fires, music played at harvests, civic rituals.
It existed simply because expressing the human experience is a fundamental biological impulse.
But then, the exact same industrial playbook that centralized factory labor came for the artists.
Record labels, traditional book publishers, major film studios.
Yep. They looked at human passion and figured out how to turn it into a product.
And the crucial detail here is that the labels and the studios didn't invent the music. They didn't write the novels.
Not at all. They just built a gate and centralized the means of distribution.
They invested in owning the distance between your art and the people who needed it.
That's a great way to put it. The extraction wasn't a side effect of the music or publishing industries. It was the industry.
Right. You had artists signing away the master rights to their own life's work in perpetuity just to get access to a printing press or a radio network.
But you might wonder, why wouldn't they just step outside the system?
Yeah, like if a record label is offering you a terrible deal where they take 85% of your royalties, why wouldn't an artist just say, no thanks, I'll go play in the town square and keep 100%?
Because of the psychological conditioning we talked about earlier?
The toll booth.
Right. The institutional toll booth didn't just control distribution, it controlled legitimacy.
Ah, right. Artists eventually fused their identities with this institutional validation.
A record deal or a Grammy Award stopped being a business arrangement. It became existential proof of an artist's worth.
So if you didn't have a gallery representation, you weren't just poor.
You were culturally invisible. You weren't a real artist.
And this is where the identity heist reaches its absolute peak. Artists who were actively being exploited by the system,
Giving up their intellectual property, taking pennies on the dollar.
begging executives for playlist placement. They became its loudest defenders.
Because the system's legitimacy was their legitimacy.
Yeah, there is a quote from the text that just stops you in your tracks. Let me see. The cage is most secure when the bird believes the bars are its wings.
It's just profound conditioning. We were taught that the gauntlet of rejection, the years of paying dues, playing empty dive bars, begging A&R reps for a meeting.
That this suffering was the necessary crucible of making good art.
But Sack argues it wasn't. It was just the cost of doing business in an artificially scarce system.
I want to ask you, the person listening to this right now, have you ever stopped yourself from sharing a piece of your own writing or a song or a business idea simply because it wasn't validated by an official institution?
It's a tough question.
It is. Have you ever disqualified your own creativity because a gatekeeper didn't stamp it with approval?
Which brings us to the collision point. If our identities, our leverage, and our egos are entirely wrapped up in surviving the gauntlet of these gates, what happens when a technology arrives that simply walks right around them?
Enter AI. And AI doesn't just walk around the gate, it vaporizes it.
Completely.
I mean, taking a track from a bedroom demo to a radio-ready master used to cost tens of thousands of dollars and required specialized industry infrastructure.
Visual production, coding an app, expanding a narrative draft, all of these required massive capital or years of highly specific technical training.
And now, a teenager with a laptop and an internet connection has the technical execution capabilities of a mid-sized production studio.
AI is the most comprehensive gatebreaker in history.
Because previous technologies broke specific gates, right? Like the internal combustion engine broke geographic gates.
Right, and the internet broke physical distribution gates. But AI collapses the barrier between the conception of an idea and the technical execution of that idea.
It doesn't ask permission.
No, it doesn't.
And the reaction from the established corners of the arts and the corporate world has been explosive.
Very much so.
But I have to play devil's advocate here because the book makes a massive claim about this backlash. Artists are genuinely terrified right now.
Of course.
They're watching models scrape their life's work. They're terrified of losing their livelihoods and watching the human soul of art be replaced by algorithmic slop.
Yeah.
Is Sack really arguing that this is all just a cover for protecting their paychecks?
Well, he doesn't dismiss the very real economic pain of displacement.
Okay, that's fair.
What he argues is that the moral outrage is often misdirected. The established industry uses highly philosophical language. They talk about ethics, the sanctity of human expression, the soul of art.
Right, we hear that all the time.
But Sack points out they're largely having a conversation about commercial leverage.
Oh, interesting.
If you spent 20 years building your entire career leverage on being one of the few people who had access to or mastery of high-level production tools, the democratization of those tools is deeply destabilizing.
So the outrage, he argues, should be directed at the capitalist system that forced artists to commodify their soul to survive in the first place.
Exactly. Not at the tool that makes creation accessible to everyone.
That makes me think of the calculator analogy he uses, which honestly completely shifted my perspective.
It's a great analogy.
Right. When the pocket calculator came out, mathematicians and engineers absolutely freaked out. They held protests.
It really did.
But the calculator didn't replace the mathematician. It just automated the rote mechanical processing, freeing up their cognitive load so they could actually do higher-order math and physics.
Exactly. But imagine if your entire identity, your sense of self-worth, and your salary were based purely on being the guy who could do long division by hand faster than anyone else in the office.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
To that person, the calculator feels like an existential threat. It threatens the performance of the skill they confused for their identity.
This forces us to look at the darkest, most uncomfortable truth beneath the resistance to AI in the creative class.
It's tough to face.
For many creators who spent decades suffering, facing rejection, going into debt, and making heavy compromises to get through the industry gates.
AI feels like it's erasing the meaning of their journey.
Right. If anyone can produce a high-fidelity image or a mastered song in 30 seconds, what was the point of all that suffering?
That is the tragedy of the sunk cost fallacy. The suffering wasn't the point of the art.
Right.
The talent and the vision were always there, but the years of pain were spent clearing manufactured obstacles.
Manufactured obstacles.
The commodity producer fears the tool because it exposes that the commodity was the point. The true artist adapts the tool to their vision.
So I have to ask you again, sitting there listening right now, is your fear of automation really about protecting your passion? Or is it just about protecting a position on a ladder that you confused for a self?
That is the mirror the book is holding up.
Yeah.
Are you threatened by tools that let more people create? Or are you energized by what that means for human expression?
Because once we realized the gates were just illusions, just toll booths built by middlemen, the fall of those gates isn't a threat.
No, it's a massive opportunity for reclamation.
Let's talk about that reclamation. Because if the factory model only wanted us to be obedient production units, what did it actively suppress?
Well, it suppressed deep thinking. It suppressed the authentic creative impulse.
It suppressed empathy and relational intelligence.
Why? Because a deeply emotional person who asks structural questions makes a terrible, expensive, inefficient factory worker.
Creativity without a commercial application was dismissed as a silly hobby. Empathy was rebranded as a weakness in the boardroom.
And we spent centuries grading those traits out of our workforce.
But those suppressed traits, the messy, emotional, deeply human elements, are the exact things that AI cannot replicate.
Right, because it's not a matter of computing power or getting a better processor.
AI hasn't lived a life.
It hasn't.
It can generate a string of text that reads perfectly as empathetic, but it doesn't actually have the lived experience of grief.
It has never felt the physical weight of a heartbreak.
Or the adrenaline of falling in love, or the shame of failing and having to try again.
Lived experience is the one thing that cannot be synthesized. AI can write a technically perfect sad song, but it doesn't know sadness.
Right.
It can't hold a creative vision born from decades of personal, irrational obsession.
So the human whose depth was suppressed by the industrial system wasn't replaced by a machine.
No, they were just temporarily forced to impersonate one for the last 200 years.
Oh, that's good.
And now, the machines can actually do the machine work.
Which ushers in what SAC calls the return to the digital cottage economy. But this time, on a global scale.
Yes, creators can now use AI as their operating infrastructure.
You can be the visionary, the director, the architect. You can execute your vision, produce it at a professional fidelity, and reach your audience directly.
You don't need a middleman extracting your credit.
You don't need an executive demanding an 80% cut of your revenue just for giving you permission to exist in the marketplace.
When the repetitive processing, the coding, the mechanical execution are handled by automation, what is left in the human's hands is the exact work the industrial system had no budget for.
Genuine human connection.
Ethical judgment, lived empathy, and original vision.
So what does this all mean for us moving forward? It means the automation age isn't the end of human work. It's the end of humans being forced to act like bad machines.
That is the true human reclamation. But we have to be honest, the transition is going to be incredibly turbulent.
Yeah, it won't be easy.
People who benefited the most from operating the toll booths will fight the hardest to keep the gates closed.
And for those of us who were psychologically conditioned since kindergarten to need the system's gold stars and validation,
It's going to take time to trust our own capabilities without someone grading us.
bringing it all together, the ultimate message of the mirror is that AI is simply exposing the architecture of the room we've been standing in.
It's showing us that the exclusivity of the gate was the product all along, not the art itself.
The work you do, the art you make, the connections you build with other people, those were always real.
The technology only threatens the performance. It threatens the compliance. It does not threaten the human.
It asks us to recognize that the identity we've been operating from might have been assembled around us by a system that just needed us to perform a function.
It's an invitation to stop looking at what you've achieved through the lens of compliance and start looking at what you can create through the lens of pure, unpermissioned capability.
Which leaves us with the most provocative thought of all, the question the book closes on. When the gate falls, who are you without it?
It's a big question.
I want you to really think about that. If this extractive system spent centuries methodically grading the curiosity and the empathy out of us, what unimaginable things might you build tomorrow if you simply stopped waiting for permission and finally met the unconditioned version of yourself?
There has never been a better time in human history to find out.
So the next time you look at that diploma or that job title or that award on your shelf, recognize it for what it was, a tracking device for a game you no longer have to play. The gate is gone. It's time to find out who you really are.